Hello, welcome to this live stream. So my plan in my last live stream, I said that I was going to do one live stream per month on 2018, and so far I haven't been off to a great start, but that's okay. I'm going to make up for it for the rest of the year, I think. And I'm just sitting here. I've recorded a couple of episodes of Show and Tell, and I'm planning to record a few more. I like to record a few in one day, and then I can, edit in some B-roll and stuff over the coming weeks. So I'm trying to do 4 in total today, and 2 down. And I've just set up all the gear in the living room here, and I just wanted to take you through what I'm using these days to make these videos. We have a few viewers coming in, which is great. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. But yeah, so with this, the idea of this video is just to, while I wait for some stuff to import into my computer, I was going to take you through a few of the things I use for filming my show and tell videos. It always changes. At the minute, I'm standing up in the living room. Thanks for the nice channel comment there from Mad Time Productions. Thank you so much for watching. So yeah, the setup is constantly changing. I used to sit at the desk over here, and now I move things around. I'm standing up in the living room. You've probably seen my last few videos. I'm shooting almost everything I can with the GH5 now. That way I can use my live production cameras during the videos. Before, I would use my live production cameras to make these episodes, and that was just a pain because I constantly had to, if I was talking about the camera, I'd have to stop recording and bring the camera in. So for now, I'm using my GH5, and then let's just go on a little tour here. So like I said, I use the living room to do most of the recording. I'll just flip my camera so you can see. Here's the approximate shot from the GH5, somewhere around here, and you can see just have some stuff in the background there just to keep things interesting. But I have my GH5 up on the tripod. I'm trying desperately not to fall over things here. I can just turn that on. I have my Rode Link Filmmakers Kit. And that's just getting my audio. So here's the other side. It's not attached to me right now. I'm just between shoots, so I thought I would take it off and set it down there. So yeah, so that's it. For audio, I use that, and it's coming in through this little, I don't even know what you call it, like a little splitter thing, and it allows me to get the audio right for 2 channels, which is nice. Coming into the GH5, and then I have this little Lilliput monitor, hello, below that, which should turn on in a second. Yeah, there we go. And it's getting me a nice shot of everything, so you can see me there. Hello. I'm basically I'm just standing back here somewhere. I have found it difficult, GH5 to get focus right, so I also use the Field Monitor app on the iPhone, so I can get focus in, and that works really well. Dimitri, you're asking, do I use GoPro for wide view? No, I don't. I use all Canon cameras for my shots during live streams. I don't really use the GoPro much anymore. I just use it for sort of home things. So that's the camera, GH5, and then I have this little confidence monitor here, just so I can see what I'm doing. When you're standing back, it is very difficult to tell on this little tiny screen if you are in focus. So I use this big 7-inch monitor, but once again, it's still hard to tell if you're in focus. So I use the app on the phone to make sure focus is just right. Now for lighting, I have recently, I would say, invested in some lights, and as you can see here, I've just kind of put this light under a big thing, but I'm using the Aputure, what's it called? Yeah, there it is there, HRS 672S as my key light, and I've just, like I say, I've just thrown some diffusion sheet over that. In the future I want to put a softbox on that, but for now, there we go. It's just giving me a nice diffused light there. And then I have a couple of these. little tiny lights. Again, DSLR video shooter is a big help for all this stuff. But I'm using a couple of these AL H198s. And this one in particular is just getting like a nice little hair light. So I'll turn that on and turn it on a little. And one more light, another one of those same little tiny ones, is just doing a little bit of fill on this side. So if I can turn it on with one hand, there we go. So I'm standing here. I'll turn around the camera so you can see me. But I'm basically standing here. I've got that nice key light over there. Over here you can see that little fill light is just filling in some shadows. And then that hair light is behind me there, giving me a nice hair light. This is something I'm learning a lot about, lighting as I go along. So it's not right just yet, and someday I'm sure I'll get it right. But for now, I'm just figuring things out as they go. Let's see what else I use. I've got some water sitting on a little table. This ironing board is not what I usually use to do this stuff, but it was just sitting out while it's just sitting out here today, so I just thought I'd use it. And then I got the iPad, the very dirty iPad, and its main focus is I've got all my notes on there, so the script and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it for the main setup. Luckily, most things are done. These days, I do most of my shooting. Let's just get this shot here so I can talk to you. I do most of my shooting with like A-roll and B-roll. Before, in 2017, all my older videos, they were all like shot live pretty much. So as I was filming them, I was cutting between the cameras, or else I was doing them like a multicam edit. But now I do A-roll and B-roll. So that means a little more work up front, but in the end, it makes for a better video, I think. So this is where I would do all the A-roll kind of stuff. And then if I take you on a little journey out to the kitchen, and be warned that it is messy out here. I have all my gear lying. I just was at a conference, and since then I've taken it all back again. And over here, we're just doing some testing around. You know, having some fun with the A10. And I can see that on the computer, I can see all my, I'm just closing some notifications here, but on the computer here, I can see it's finished copying the stuff that I shot today. So you can see me just getting my voice ready there before I started shooting. So out here later on, I will clear away this table, and I will get some shots of the I'm talking about this today in the video, so I'll get some overhead shots of that, plugging it in and doing all sorts of things like that. So that's a really quick look at the mess I'm making in the kitchen today. And we'll go back in here again. If you do have any questions, just let me know in the chat there. But otherwise, I think that will probably be about it for the day. I have got, like I said, I've got a couple more episodes that I'm going to try and film before I'm done for the day, and then I can put away all the equipment, and I can just get some B-roll and some other bits and pieces as time goes by over the next month. So yeah, like I said at the start, I like to record the main part. So setting up all this equipment takes the longest and is the most, time consuming thing that I'm doing. So I set this up maybe once a month or so, record a bunch of A-roll, as it were, and then over the next few weeks, I can just maybe on like a Monday or Tuesday, I can record the B-roll and the shots of devices and all that stuff, and then edit it on Wednesday maybe, and have it uploaded on Wednesday or Thursday, and that way I can release it come Thursday evening whenever I release most of my videos. So Dimitri's asking, for multicam, can we use a GoPro for wide and then a Panasonic HTC SD1 for your main shot? It really depends on what you're bringing it all into. As long as you can, if you're using an A10 for example, as long as you can set all the devices to be the same resolution and frame rate, then it won't have any. You won't have any problems with that, as long as you're happy with how they look. I've since moved away from GoPros for live production because I think, certainly with when you bring them into the ATEM, I just have never been really that happy with the quality. They have a nice wide lens, but for the dark rooms and events that I shoot in, I find that they just don't look that great compared to the other cameras, which are much more flexible. You can change, the exposure and all that stuff. So I've moved away from them personally, but as long as you can get them all to a match, and if you're bringing them in through a laptop as well, into Wirecast or into OBS, as long as you can get them showing up in there, then you can definitely use them. The Panasonic camera I'm not familiar with. I can't do a Google search now, but otherwise I would check it out for you and see what it looks like. But if they have clean HDMI outs, just like the most Panasonic cameras do, like the GH5 that I have, most Panasonics do have that, so you should be fine to use that. But yeah, thanks for your questions, and I think that will probably about do it for now. I hopefully will do a longer live stream again this month, or maybe definitely next month if I can. Oh, I get another question. Let me just see here. Do you know any solution, an external box that makes it possible to color correct non-Blackmagic design cameras? I think, thinking off the top of my head, I think that your best option would be you could get some of those newer Blackmagic design HDMI to SDI converters. I believe you can load LUTs into them, so that way you can make the cameras look whatever way you want. You can correct them, you can grade them, you can tweak them with a LUT. So that's probably the way I would go if I wanted to. I wanted to make non-Blackmagic cameras look a certain way. You won't be able to control them as such, but you'll be able to give them a certain look and fix them before the show kicks off or the event. Because you'll have to use a file to make that happen and put it on there. So it won't be for nice control during, but I think that it'll work for you if you do it before. Another question: do you recommend using a couple of GH4s for live production with the ATEM? What kind of lenses would be ideal to reach the presenter stationed in the back of the room? Yeah, this is a great question, and it's a problem that I have thought about before. I thought about getting Blackmagic, Blackmagic micro studio cameras for live production, but I'm just getting some water here, don't mind me. But my main worry was that I'd have to bring a bunch of different lenses. So yes, GH4s, definitely you could use those for live production. I think that there might be a short delay out of the HDMIs on GH4s as well as GH5s. So if I was going to use GH4s for live production, I would only use GH4s so that they're all as delayed as each other, ideally. And then in terms of lenses, it was something I also thought about. So whenever I was at a conference and I was doing some behind the scenes with my GH5, I happened to see that I would need at least, I think it was like at least 100 or 150 mil lens based on where I was standing in order to recreate the shot that I was getting from my camcorder, like my Canon camcorder. So if you're at the back of a big room, again, it's going to be hard to be too specific because I don't know what room you might be shooting in, how big it is, how far away, how tight you want the shot. But personally, I think you want to get at least like over 150 mil lens if you're going to be far away. And then if you wanted to get one that has some more control and all that stuff, they're going to be becoming big lenses and big pieces of heavy glass to carry around. So while I wanted to go Blackmagic design studio what are they called, micro studio cameras, it just didn't make any sense because of the size of or the amount of lenses you might need to bring The nice thing about a camcorder with the lens built in with 20 times zoom is that most rooms, unless it's a massive room, most rooms you should be pretty covered in, and you want to take away as much of the worry and uh, the uncertainty as possible if you're going to go to a bunch of different live venues. That's why I want to err towards the side of caution and say I'll bring a camera that I know can zoom right in, and I won't have to bring a lens just in case, an extra zoom just in case. That can be a big worry. So that's it. Next question is, if you were to buy a new Canon camcorder, what would you buy today? A Canon XF or XA35? Funny, I just bought about a month ago. I bought an XA11 from Canon, and so far I'm liking it. My problems with the XA10 mainly were that it didn't get far enough zoom. It only had ×10 zoom. And what else was it about the XA10? Anyway, that was one of the main things. So I bought the XA11 recently, and it's got a great zoom. And then since then I have seen the XA30 and 35, and the little monitor, the little screen on the XA11 is just not as good as I would like it to be. The one on the XA10 is great. The one on the XA30 is great. It seems like the reason that XA11 is less expensive than the other cameras, is because, or one of the things I would say is because they've really cheaped out on the screen. It's got really bad viewing angles, and it's just not as good quality as the XA10 or the XA30. So, if I was going to buy another camera, while it's okay to save the money and buy the XA11, I'd probably push towards the XA30 or the XA35 if you want the SDI. I haven't had a look at the XA15, so maybe the screen's better on that. Maybe they put some money into that instead. But I'm a big fan of the XA range, and the XA35 is a great choice if you can afford the price, and if you want the SDI instead of the HDMI, then that's how I would go. Okay, thank you so much for your questions, and perhaps I should get back to filming these episodes. Okay, one more question. XF305. I haven't used the XF cameras, so I can't honestly comment and say that they're good or bad. The reason I go for XA range is because of the small size. Really, I need to. Last week I went to a conference and I brought three cameras with me, all in my backpack, and they were all XA somethings. So I couldn't do that with bigger cameras. As much as I would like to have bigger cameras that are better in low light or have fancier features or more buttons, that's one downside of the XA cameras. There's not many buttons. I just can't. They just can't carry bigger cameras, so that's the reason that I push for those, and I opt for those. Yeah, so that's a good point by Matteo there. If you don't need XLR inputs, like the XA30 has XLR, if you don't need that, then the HFG40 is great. I have the HFG25, a couple of years old now, but I use it as a wide shot, and it's got a great image. I've been really happy with it, with no problems at all. So I would probably, if I was going to buy another camera and I didn't need the XLR, then I might actually go for the HFG40, which I think is a small, perfectly great camera. Again, for me, it's all about keeping it small and portable, so that's why I would go for that. Do I think that the Canon XA35 low light capabilities would be as good as the newly announced GH5Ss? I don't think it. I've got a feeling that it wouldn't be as good as I think the GH5S would probably be better, but only because you can get faster lenses on it. So the XA30, you're going to be stuck with whatever you've got. Whereas if you go for something like the GH5S, then you can put a fast lens on it and really open it up and get more light in there. So it's a difficult comparison to make, I would say, but maybe I'm not thinking it through and just answering on the fly as the question came in there. XF105 is quite small and has SDI out. Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna check that out. XF105, and see what it's like. Maybe that could be a good camera to recommend to people. Like I say, the ones I've always chose were the X810s, because I think I got one in the first place and then I just really grew to like them. But I'm always interested in seeing what else is out there, and if it's a better camera or has, a better image for the same size and for a similar price, then I'm willing to move away from the ones I have. I don't want to buy a new camera every few months, but I'm willing to do it if the time comes where I need a new camera in the future. Then I can look into the, what was it, XF105. Excellent. Let's see. One shot video. Thank you for joining in. You say you got an X810 and you have a converter to SDI. Okay, let me read this properly. You've got an X810. You use a converter to SDI with the Blackmagic ATEM. Is that enough? I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but this is some things I've been trying to figure out at the minute, which is I want my Canon cameras. I would love if they outputted 1080p 25 so that I could run my switcher in 1080p 25. But what I have to do now instead is, because they only really output 1080i 50 or 1080p 50. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So they only output 1080i 50 or 1080p 50 and not 1080p 25 in the middle. So instead of just using a HDMI to SDI converter, what I do now per camera is I scale each camera from 1080i 50 to 1080p 25, and then that allows me to come in to the ATEM and do everything in 1080p 25. What that has meant, annoyingly, is that per camera, if I want to buy a fourth camera, a fifth camera, not only will I buy the camera, but also a converter and, well, scaler per camera. So that drastically brings up the price of the camera, I would say. So at the minute I'm trying to figure out what the best way around it all is. Is it better to just go for 1080p 50 all in and do it that way? Is it a good idea to go back to 1080i 50? I really don't want to, but I could do that. So it's a bit of a pain. Yeah, that's true. You don't necessarily have to go from, if you have the X810, you can plug it in straight to the ATEM through HDMI, but you might, like me, my cameras end up being further away than a few meters, so I convert everything to SDI just to make it simpler in the end. But and in my case, once again, if I want to go out of my closest camera, which is only a meter away from me, and put it straight into my ATEM, I can't really do that because it doesn't output 1080p 25, which is what I need it to. So even if it's 1 meter away, I still need to add an extra box and convert that to 1080p 25. I've said a lot of numbers, I hope that it's made sense, but I need to convert every camera, basically. Or I need to convert on the output of the ATEM and record in 1080p. So either way, it means a bunch of devices, which I have them all now, but just in the future, it's hard to know. Okay, another question. What do you think of the XF400, 405, future pushing yourself in 4K feature in the mind? Yeah, I've heard a lot of good about the one of those two I've heard a lot of good about. I can't remember which one it is though. But if I was going to buy cameras with 4K in mind for the future, yeah, sure, I would think about those ones. They are small, not as small as I don't believe they're as small as I would like them to be. Again, this is just purely my restrictions on what I can carry myself. If you've got a venue or something like that, then you don't need to worry about fitting everything in your backpack. So that's a big plus for you. Um, but for my restrictions, I think they're a bit bigger than I would like them to be. Um, and other things about them were the 4K in the future. I'm struggling to think of a need for future proofing myself that heavily. Um, I don't know. I personally I think that it does make sense to future proof yourself. Sure, 4K, but um, I think I'm pretty happy with 1080p for the next couple of years. I think so. I think I'm happy with that. I'm only starting to do, like in the last 6 months, I'm only starting to do the my like client work and stuff in there's some sort of cat fight in the background here. Um, I'm only starting to do my client work now in 4K really recently. So, and that's just, with my GH5 and much more focused uh, effort to make that kind of stuff look as good as it can. So for conference work, there's just so many steps involved to up that to 4K. Even though it makes sense to future-proof myself, I'm pretty happy with the price of HD cameras for the price of the media size cards I'll need, and all that stuff. So for now, I'm pretty happy with HD, and I think I will be for the next few years. I'm more focused these days on trying to get my setup to be as mobile but as operational and ready to use once I get to a venue as possible. That's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm spending my money on, my time on. So um, I guess I'm less interested in the future proof for now, but that could come and hurt me someday whenever I want to. Whenever I want to make the switch. And the thing is, there's still plenty of time to, in a year or two, to buy my first 4K camera maybe. As long as it's small and light and portable, I could do that then. Okay, this time I think I'll make a run for it and say I'll see you in the next live stream. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate the comments, and people have had some nice comments and all the good stuff through the comments on all the other videos. I do really appreciate it, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for subscribing if you have, and I'll see you